Hello, welcome back. It's Hobbyist Fishing with Kyle Hookstadt and special guest Cole Sands, who we did a video a few months ago talking about the Sandman series of fishing rods that Kyle at Witch Doctor Tackle makes and Cole had a lot of input into. But this time around, it's the middle of the winter. It's freezing up here in the north. It's cold down where Cole is. And Kyle, you're in Florida, so you're living the dream. But we just wanted to kind of get on here, talk about winter fishing, answer some questions that I've had and I've seen a lot of you had. But let's just get into it. How you doing, guys?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Living the dream, living the dream.
All right, Cole. So, with it being winter, I think the first thing to talk about is winter techniques. What is kind of one your go-to winter fishing technique? Then what's one that's like a fun winter technique, something that's fun to pull out in the winter? And then third, if there's any kind of winter techniques that you don't see other people talking about too much, I think that'll be a great place to talk about too.
Yeah, so for me, wintertime fishing is all about finding the bait. And it kind of depends on what lake you're on. Are you on a really deep, clear highland reservoir? Like I'm on now, we're finding bait as deep as 80 foot of water, and the fish are on them. So when they're that deep, there's only like maybe two baits you can hit them with. One's like a 1 ounce jig head minnow, and the other's like a jig and spoon, like a real heavy jig and spoon. And besides that, you're probably not going to hit them with a whole lot. So if they're down there in that water column, you're going to have to hit them really deep, really quick. And you think a 1 ounce head's heavy until you try to hit a fish in 80 foot of water and you realize a 1 ounce head does not fall that fast. And so that's always kind of like a go-to on these really deep, clear mountain lakes in the winter, like just something you can get to them really fast and hit them. Because if they're that deep, 40 plus foot, all they're seeing down there really is the silhouette of the bait more than anything. So I love finding them deep because they're usually pretty easy to catch because they can't see very good down there. Now, if they're up a little shallower or high in the water column, like so today we had a really cold morning and then it warmed up as the day went. We had like a real sunny day. And what you'll see is as that sun gets up, as you get into like the midday and the afternoon, you'll see a lot of bait get up high and a lot of the bass will rise too. And probably my favorite in the winter to catch them on because it's just so fun as a jerk bait. I love the new Yozuri Pro Series jerk bait. And then as like you're more in your shallower places like the Tennessee River, your shallower reservoirs, even like down into Florida, places like that, that jerkbait's just as efficient around grass and stumps and brush piles too. And then in the winter, you can't talk about winter fishing without talking about an Alabama rig. I really enjoy throwing an Alabama rig. It catches giant fish. And for me, it's kind of like a fun off-season bait because, during the Elite Series season, we're not allowed to use it. But like you best believe, like if the fish are around bait this time of year, that's going to be a Diamond Baits Alabama rig is like my favorite rig to throw in the world. And what's cool about it, you can change your jig head sizes, your swim bait sizes. You can really modify an A-rig actually a whole lot. But I'd say that's three baits like you got to have. You got to have your jig head minnow, your jerk bait, and your Alabama rig. Like if you're leaving the house without those, you're probably not going to have the best day in the world.
Awesome. Have you seen, are you starting to see some people doing that thing where they're shaking an Alabama rig, like the really light wire ones coming out of Asia?
Yeah, so I've seen that and I've actually tried it a little bit. And I don't know if they bite it too good. I feel like it spooks them. But I'm sure there's probably some lakes where like it's going to play more than others. My lakes are so clear. I think they see that wire shaking.
Yeah.
And we tried one the other day a little bit, and it seemed like it spooked them more than it made them bite. But it's one of them deals too. I'm sure during certain scenarios it might be really good. But yeah, I have seen that. I'm kind of intrigued by that.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's more of a bank angling technique in Asia where we're like keeping that at the end of our rod and we're just walking down the bank with it and just shaking it.
Yeah.
And it's like just literally just walking down, but you'll have bass just especially if those like hard walls in like a pond. If you're just walking across, they'll just smoke that thing. It's so much fun in those like situations. But kind of talking about bank angling and winter techniques, you kind of mentioned it with, in the afternoon when the sun kind of warms up that water, the bass are coming up in that water column. If you're a bank angler, what is our best shot in that kind of late afternoon in the winter? What are we looking for? Are we looking for stone, muddy bottom, or just drop-offs?
Yeah, so and there it really depends on what lake you're on yet again. So like if you're on a deep, clear highland reservoir in the winter and you're bank fishing, you're going to have a pretty hard chance hitting a lot of those fish out there. Now, like a lot of these smallmouth, they'll get on these really deep flats and maybe you could throw far enough, but it'd be really tough. But if you're more like a Tennessee River system, a shallower place where your average depth is like 10, 12 foot, man, I have seen, there's this one guy that fishes Lake Chickamauga all the time, which is, the previous lake I lived on, and he wades. That's all he does. He just wades from the bank. That guy has caught more 8-pound bass than just about anybody I know. And what he does in this late fall, winter, spring, anywhere like the wind's been blowing in the back of a pocket, he'll just look on his map and just kind of pay attention to the wind direction, and he'll go back there and just throw a lipless crankbait around that, or a swim bait, or whatever. And just anywhere where there might be deep water close by, but that wind could push that bait a little bit shallower, especially maybe in the afternoons, or if it's a warm front like we get this down here. Like Tennessee weather's crazy. It'll be 30 degrees for 2 weeks and it'll be 60 degrees for 2 weeks. But whenever you'd have them warm fronts, he would really catch them on a lipless crankbait, because it's a bait you can throw really far, for one, and especially on them shallower reservoirs in the winter, fish like to get on that mud in the back of creeks because it warms up. So there'll be a lot of bait there. And then another thing you can do, like if you're on a shallower lake like Chickamauga, there's a lot of places where grass grows relatively close to the bank, and use your Google Earth or Bing Maps or Apple Mapping, whatever shows you that drawdown really well. There's a lot of good places like on Chickamauga you can get from the bank. Now, like your deep places, like I said, some of these up here, you might be better off just not, go into a pond or a different lake. But definitely it's kind of situation based, I'd say, more than anything.
And then one more question that's kind of in my theory, but
okay.
When it comes to cold water fishing, do you see a big difference between largemouth and how smallmouth react to colder waters? I have a feeling that smallmouth are a bit more comfortable, a bit more active in cooler water temps, and on average, than largemouth bass. Is that real? Is that just something in my head that I'm making up?
No, absolutely, 100%. So, what the smallmouth do on these deep, clear highland reservoirs, what they do is they get on the bottom on these flats in 30 to 60, 70 foot of water. And every lake's a little different, don't get me wrong, but what they do, especially in this area, and a lot of places I fish, is they cruise as fast as they, like, it don't matter how cold it is. They're on the bottom, they're cruising, moving fast. That's one way I can tell they're bass. Like, are they moving fast, or are they sitting still? If they're moving pretty quick, they're probably bass. Now, if they get in a bait ball, what the smallmouth to do, they'll hug the bottom, run the flats, and then if they see a bait ball above them, they'll come up and feed for a minute. And if you can get in there when they're doing that, or if it's a lot of bait where they really feed for a while, man, you can load the boat really quick. And then they're back down cruising. And smallmouth, yes, absolutely, they're not lethargic at all in the winter, honestly. Like, smallmouth are crazy. And then largemouth are definitely a lot more lethargic. Now, if they want to be aggressive, like if they get in a bait ball and they want to feed, they absolutely can. But what you'll see in the winter is the largemouth will get in the dead middle of the bait balls and just kind of sit there and suspend. Like, they're not like just chasing and going up and down and going up and down. They will sometimes, they get really fired up, but they're usually like in the middle of the bait ball, eat something, go back in the middle of the bait ball, eat something, then maybe mosey off, maybe come back.
They're kind of waiting for the bait to come rather than chasing them out.
They'll chase a little bit, but like once they get in the bait ball, they're just going to kind of sit there. They're not like a smallmouth that's going to crash it, go down, may swim 70 feet that way, come back. Like, smallmouth are crazy. And then if you're more on like a current-based river system, like a lot of the largemouth in the winter, smallmouth will too, but a lot of them largemouth are going to just sit on like a brush pile or a stump and just wait for something to go over them. Now, bait might be close by. That's usually a key, but they're going to get on that structure close by. And smallmouth will do it some too, but smallmouth are definitely twice as active, it seems like, in the wintertime.
And with the river systems, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but the bass are, because it's colder water, they're trying to conserve energy. They're going to try to stay out of that current as much as possible, right?
In the winter time.
You're looking for places in the winter where you don't have that current.
Yes. Great. Yeah, so in the wintertime, they're definitely going to be more on the slack water side for the most part. Now, if there's a good eddy where they can sit behind the rock, absolutely. Now in the summer, that they're more in the current for the most part, but in the winter, it's definitely, they want to be in that slack water. Now, moving water can be close by because it's going to wash a lot of bait in there, but you definitely find them in the winter a whole lot more on the slack water side.
Awesome. Kyle?
So This could be a question for the group. This could be a question for even the audience. I think what we're seeing, like, from a business side of things, we're seeing and I've talked to a lot of different clubs, a lot of different teams, and the older generation, the younger generation. What I'm hearing is a lot of people are saying that we're at a adaptive period in the fishing space. We're seeing a lot of younger generation coming in and trying all these new techniques, and fishing in different ways, and the technology that's coming out is just evolving how people fish. And so like the older generation is kind of doing the same thing over and over and kind of getting the same results, while the new generation is trying everything possible that's never been done and just seeing what works. And so like, what would you guys say, both from like your perspective, Alexander, on bank angling world and just fishing for fun, versus Cole on the competitive side and the pro side? Like, how are you guys seeing this play out? Like, what are your thoughts on this, ideas?
Go ahead, Cole.
Okay. Yeah. So my side, it's it's kind of a sensitive topic to say some things, but I think one of the main things, what you're seeing with this younger generation is just the ability to gain and process information at such a more rapid pace than really, and it's not just because they're young or anything like that, which I think is a little bit of it, but I just think the amount of information that's out there right now. I mean, you go on YouTube, you can learn how to do so much on YouTube or any video, because what the pros have done the past 30 years is they've been paid by their sponsors to give all their secrets away pretty much. So the ability to gain information is definitely out there. And that's why you see so many young guys that are already so good at like 18 years old. They're winning tournaments. Where used to, that was kind of rare. And then I think that, and then what LiveScope has done, it has allowed us to process fish behavior at 100 times faster than we used to be able to process it. We can tell if our bait's wrong, if we need to speed it up, slow it down. Now, there's still a ton of skill that goes into being good with it, a ton. But these young guys are able to process that. There's, a lot of these guys are smart. They already got a good fishing background, and they're, technologically advanced. They grew up with a computer, cell phone, so playing video games. So when they're seeing this stuff, they're just processing it really quick. And like I said, there's still a ton of talent and skill that goes into it to make those little adjustments. And we're still figuring out new things every day. Like the jig head minnow craze was, the deal, and it still is. But like forward facing sonar, like topwater is about to be a really big thing with it, and jerkbaits already have been. But it's kind of cool how we're learning. Like we're in the middle of the evolving process right now. And then I think what you're seeing too is I've seen more tournaments in this past year get won on the bank than I have in a long time too. So like some of the old school fishermen are like, they're coming back around too and winning tournaments around the house, like because some shallow fish are being left alone now. And for me, like I was kind of in that in between generation. Like towards the end of my college career, I got LiveScope, and so I learned how to fish without it. And that's what I would recommend for anybody growing up, is like be good at fishing without it. Like learn all the basics, the fundamentals, and be really good at that. All the information's out there. There's no reason not to be good at that. But when that tournament sets up, to be really good at LiveScope, be proficient at that as well. And so I think that's the main thing. It's just these young guys are having a ton of information they can learn really quick, and then just being able to process stuff so fast by looking at LiveScope. But what you're seeing tournament organizations do too right now is they're kind of doing some different things too. Like our schedule next year, for example, we're only allowed to use LiveScope in 5 of the 9 tournaments, and the 4 of them we're not allowed to use it. So I think that's going to probably hopefully help some bait sales, and companies maybe crankbait sales, stuff like that's going to kind of come back around. So it'll be interesting to see. It's kind of a evolving time right now, and I don't know if anybody knows what's going to happen in the next few years. All I know is the last 3 years have been like this crazy boom of just technology, people figuring it out, and I think we're going to see a lot of cool baits and innovations in the next couple of years because of that.
Well, I mean, the fishing space is evolving like how do I say this? I mean, compared to the rate it used to evolve in, it's just exploding in terms of, and it's technology. Technology impacts everything, and the creativity, as well as I think exposure. Alexander, we talked about this. You talk about this a lot. Exposure to other cultures now, like just people going on YouTube and seeing how people fish in other countries has changed drastically in how people fish out here. I do remember, Alexander, you sent me right when the Bassmasters announced that scheduling for the sonar off, sonar on, like one event on at the next event off. We were talking about that right when that came out. So it's crazy to see how tournaments are kind of adapting to this, how people are adapting to this. So who knows what the next few years will hold, but it's definitely an open door.
And I think also now, at least for I guess for myself on the recreational side, for folks like bank anglers or folks like me that just have an inflatable boat, one, of course, Black Friday got me good. I got myself some forward-facing sonar for next year. But of course, I think, going into saying was how much technology has kind of not lowered the learning curve, but broken down a lot of these barriers to entry, right? Like, big swim bait fishing, glide bait fishing was one of those things that unless you knew a guy in California that was doing it for years, it was so hard to get that information. But now you can go online and find so much about it. Like for me, I made this winter my mission to learn how to fish, like, a Huddleston, like a swim bait. And I can go on the internet, I can go to Swimbait Underground, and I can find pages and pages and videos on how to get into swimbait fishing. So I think one cool thing about this is that now I think the younger generation is going to be a lot more inclined to try a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. I think that also is kind of to your point, what you were saying earlier, Kyle, about like how everyone used to have so many rods, but now even for my videos, I see a lot of kids asking, "Hey, I just want one rod that can fish everything." And I don't think that's a matter of people not wanting to buy more rods, but just everyone wants to try everything that they see on the internet, right? You could start by fishing a crankbait and a spinnerbait, but then, oh shoot, I saw this guy fishing a topwater spook. Now I want to go learn how to fish a spook. And that's kind of how it was for me. I wanted to learn every different kind of bait and try fishing. You see someone catch a 10-pounder on a glide bait, like, oh shoot, now I got to go get a glide bait. Can I throw a glide bait on my one medium heavy bait casting rod that I own, right? So I think in the recreational side of fishing, it's a super exciting time. A lot of people, of course, especially if you only fish from the bank, you're not going to have access to forward-facing sonar. A big thing I talk about on my channel, especially was like mid-strolling and shaking a minnow, is how great it is for bank angling. You don't need to see them. You will catch fish from the bank with it. It's just a great all-around way. But I think more people would be inclined to try different things. Like, a big good example of it was like the G-Crack stuff, the bellows gill. That was 2019, 2020, when I was still in Korea. We were freaking out about that back then. And to see this resurgence of G-Crack here in the US this year, it means it took about 5 years or so to get over here. But then now, like G-Flow, which is a glide bait company in Korea that just started like a year that I didn't even know about, they're already selling out baits here in the US. So I think that time that it takes for like cool stuff, innovative stuff in the US to come over here, innovative stuff in Asia to come over here is getting shortened. But I also now am noticing that hopefully the American-based companies are stepping up their games more and more on like creating innovative baits instead of just copying like the whole dice thing at ICAST last year, where we were only doing dice. Like Berkeley just put out the Flux Gill, which is really cool. I think that's a great idea for a bait, but something that's completely unique that's not really copying anything. So I think we're going to see a lot of more baits being used, and definitely was the lead series having that sonar on, sonar off kind of system. Plus, now I think bass won't be inclined to like chase bait in the middle anymore. Like you said, was the shallow bait being kind of left alone, the shallow bass being left alone. You're going to see a lot more baits come out in these tournaments, and that also helps, of course, in the US drive bait sales.
Agreed. I think, everything once it hits the US market, the question is who's going to make it, and then how can you innovate on it? And That's always been the game.
So cool. Super random, really random thought I had in the car today driving here. Do pros ever fish an inline spinner on the circuit? Like, do you have one on your boat ever? Like, for how good it catches fish, like, does it ever come out?
Man, I've got some sneaky little like pond stuff, like micro chatterbaits and stuff that I caught them growing up in ponds that I use. Now, one of the boys I room with, KJ Queen, he'll absolutely keep a rooster tail in his boat. Like, he'll keep a little trout inline spinner. I don't, but I know when bass are on like really small bait in the fall, that's a bait he uses. So there's sneaky stuff like that. And I've got a couple little bitty kind of finessey baits, that I kind of learned pond fishing growing up that I definitely keep, in my back pocket if it's just I need to bite, no doubt.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about it. I was like, for how much an inline spinner will catch everything under the sun, I just don't think I see it a lot. And kind of talking about baits, your with Yozuri. And I get this question a lot about glide baits and, affordable glide baits because a lot of people want to get into it. It's like it's a really cool kind of fishing to do. And Yozuri has the Pro Series glide bait. Can you talk about that? I think the pricing do you know the pricing off the top of your head?
Yeah, and I actually think they lowered it from, they used to have the Ninja Twitch dual glide bait, but they've actually improved it a lot. I think it's either 25 or 30 bucks. It's actually very affordable for a glide bait.
Yeah, that's a great price. But yeah, can you talk about it? I think it would be a great bait for people to try out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually the best glide bait and I've got some expensive glide baits. My younger brother's got a million of them. But for the price point, I think it's hard to beat. And the best glide bait they have ever had actually was on that glide bait, believe it or not. And it's one of them deals when they're on gizzard shad, because it's like a 7-inch profile, but it's a little skinnier than a lot of glide baits. It's not going to be more of a brim profile. It's definitely a gizzard shad, or if you get out west or some other shad, it's going to mimic. But great color finishes. The new Pro Series glide bait. It has upgraded hooks and upgraded split rings already, which is huge. Because you never want to hook a giant on a glide bait and it straightens your split ring or your hook. But yeah, very easy to use. Just that steady chopping action. It's going to glide great. And I really think for the price point, they hit a home run on that one.
Is it more of a wide S glide, like that slow retrieve where you get that big S, or is it more for kind of making those short chops?
It's kind of in the middle.
Okay.
It's like a good just all around, like
Got
it's
it.
not super wide, but it's not a super choppy one either. It's somewhere in between the two.
Great. I think that, check out the Yozuri Pro Series glide. I think that's a great place to start. I'm going to get my hands on some to try to test out. And that's pretty much all the time we have today for this video. Thank you, Cole, for being here. Thank you, Kyle, for being here. If you have any more questions, leave them below. I'll try to send them to Cole or Kyle, or I'll answer them, but I'll try to send it to them to get them some answers. Something that we didn't cover, leave them below. If you want to see, these videos with Kyle and Cole in the future, let us know as well. I think it's a really great time to kind of talk about fishing, especially with a pro and then someone that's not a pro and then someone that makes rods. We have a great little trio going here. But thank you so much. Thank you, both of you again, and thanks for watching.